It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Let that excite you.
sweet
Let that
is
excite
that?
you this week. We're talking baby talk right now.
Oh, let that terrify you just a little bit, because we know, okay, from a second-hand but first-hand experience, that giving birth is massive. It's a huge shift, especially in a woman's life, physically, emotionally, practically, just about on every level that exists. So we're going to unpack these three aspects especially, and how moms can better prepare for birth. And to tell us a bit more about that is infant specialist and author Meg. We love you. We love the fact that you are kind of in our pocket when we go through these crazy times. We're going to prepare the men as well, don't worry. We will as a byproduct, but this is massive. Does it get any bigger in a woman's life?
I don't think it does, yeah. Birth is a huge thing. I mean, you've kind of worked yourself up for it for 9 months, and then you've got those moments of birth, and then even more hectic than that is kind of the first couple of weeks after that. So preparing yourself is actually very important, and it is a daunting thing.
Yeah. So let's talk about how moms can go about preparing themselves for birth and having a baby from a physical point of view. What can one do?
So giving birth is not called labour for nothing. It is manual labour, and it's tough. I mean, it's been kind of compared to running a marathon. You need stamina.
Yeah.
So first of all, mums need to be fit, and if all you can do towards the end, because you're uncomfortable, is 30 minutes of a walk, that's fine. But that's the minimum you should be doing. Everybody should be having a 30-minute walk every single day leading up to the birth of their baby.
Yeah.
If you can do things like swim or Pilates or yoga, even better. And the reason is that in those sports, you are kind of leaning forward quite a bit, and it pushes your baby into the right position for birth.
Wow,
and that's quite important because that makes for an easy delivery. My middle child was a posterior delivery, which means that she was actually facing forward, which is the most painful thing. You don't want that.
Yeah.
So things like yoga and Pilates are really good for getting your baby into a position that you could actually give birth much more easily. So you can prepare.
Maybe this is a bit of a loaded question in that I know there are antenatal classes that you can go to help prepare. Are there similar kind of physical endeavours that you can... What's the best way to prepare yourself for birth for a mom? Obviously, antenatal has helped us, you know, my kind of journey, and Lindsay definitely, but what would you recommend in that space?
Yeah, so I do think antenatal classes are important, and you know, they've gone quite out of vogue, especially as more people are having elective cesareans. They say, I don't need to bother with the antenatal class because I don't need to prepare for labour. But actually, antenatal classes are very important.
Maybe it's just one small section of what you cover in that space.
Exactly. It's just a small part of it, because the rest covers how to establish breastfeeding, how to bath your baby afterwards, and then also just forming a group. I mean, I don't know. I think you guys both went to antenatal classes and actually are still in contact with a lot of the mums and dads.
We have play dates with families in the antenatal
It's an instant community, so I think antenatal classes are very important.
Yeah. And when you talk about, you know, the stuff that happens, especially post having a baby, and we were in the mall the other day, and Monique and I met a friend of hers, and they both spoke about this loss of identity, which is but one of the aspects that a mom feels after giving birth to a baby.
Extreme.
And it can be very extreme, leading to postnatal depression in some instances. So how then do you best prepare yourselves to avoid this emotional and mental burden of losing yourself, not knowing where you belong in society, in the world?
So I think there's a massive loss of self, and I don't think it's avoidable. I think that you lose who you were before, which is that woman, and you become then a mother, so you're gaining on the other side. But there are a couple of mental strategies that I think that would be very helpful for mums. The first thing is to let go. And you know, very often we come into motherhood having been quite amped, quite successful, we've ticked the boxes, and now suddenly we've got this little human life who we can't predict. And so one of the biggest... Loss of control. And one of the biggest things mums can do is actually just let go. So that's the first thing. The second thing is to adjust your expectations of yourself. You're not going to get out of bed before 10 o'clock for a very long period of time, or get out of your pyjamas. You're going to be out of bed. You're going to be feeding babies. But you're not going to be out of your pyjamas and showered. And letting go of those expectations of yourself would be another way to kind of prepare yourself for that adjustment mentally.
Well, if none of this has made you nervous as yet, and I'm speaking specifically to the new dads to be, just wait till you pack that hospital bag.
That morning.
And then it gets real.
It's time to
It's
go.
awesome. It's because you've kind of, it's almost like a roller coaster where like it's going tick, 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 you're about to cross the top, but it's one of the most beautiful experiences. But we're going to look at some practical ways, especially moms can help prepare for the most amazing process of life, giving birth.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back to your Feel Good Breakfast Show. Yes, take a deep breath. It's the start of a brand new month. The debit orders have gone off, but Women's Month is upon us. And it's baby talk time with Meg Fora, and we're talking about probably the most important day in a woman's life. Giving birth and the process involved, and we're discussing all kinds of ways to get yourself as prepared as possible for that day, for when the baby arrives, what it is that you, and I think a lot of couples probably go through this, what is worth buying and what is a complete waste of money when you're leading up to it. Because you're like, our parents, when we were born and raised, had a lot less to come to get by with, and they did it.
And that's it.
But what, in your opinion, Meg, what is worth buying? What's a complete waste of money?
Yeah, so in my opinion, you need to hold back before the baby comes, because there's a lot of stuff that gets sold to you as an essential, and afterwards you never open the box, you know, and you never use it. So a couple of things I definitely would never be buying, even afterwards, are things like jolly jumpers and baby walkers and little seating products for babies. Those sort of things are really, really not necessary.
And a lot of them are being proven to be almost detrimental,
detrimental.
Unfortunately. Yeah,
absolutely. Lots of toys in the early days also. I mean, babies don't need a lot of toys. So hold back on all of that stuff. And definitely hold back on those cute baby clothes, particularly the branded sneakers. And everybody goes for those little size sneakers, gorgeous little brands. The problem is...
But then you get them bronzed.
Outgrow them.
You get them bronzed afterwards, and that's cool. You know, some of us have
They're
a sneaker...
just so cute.
Some of us have a sneaker shrine in our houses. Others don't have that same proclivity
all right,
to...
so we got problems here.
But it is. I was joking with someone who is an expectant dad, and I think he's going to be a fantastic father. But the best thing is speak to someone who's gone through it, first of all. But you know, one of the baby stores, one of the biggest, you walk in there and they're like, "Are you a first-time parent?" And you say, yeah. They're like, "Well then, come this way to our private room at the back, the platinum section."
And dollar signs.
Completely. But and also you feel if you're skimping that you're like undercutting your child, you know. But the truth is that you don't need to go through that. You just got to be a bit more selective. But it helps to have someone's advice, because it's so bewildering when you're approaching that. What needs to go into a hospital bag?
Yeah, so the hospital bag you pack mainly for mum, actually, and much less for baby. So what mum is going to need, she's going to need some really comfy clothes for day while she's in hospital. So things like, you know, some sweat clothes, some yoga clothes, yoga pants. You definitely need your feeding bras, your maternity panties, which are the most revolting looking mesh things, and these big boats that go inside them, which are the maternity pads. So that you're going to need, Caesar or natural, you're going to bleed, you're going to need that. Yeah, you're going to need that. You also want to take in just your general toiletries that you'd normally use at home, and obviously a nice set of pajamas. Go and spoil yourself before. And then for your bubba, you want to take in a couple of baby grows, a couple of little vests, a little beanie, because mom and dad are going to do skin to skin, so kangaroo care, so they need a little beanie on their heads. And a whole pack of stage 1 nappies, so, you know, nice little disposable nappies, because you're going to go through a lot of those. And then a good swaddling blanket. And that's really what your baby needs for those days in hospital, and what you need as well. Yeah,
and Dad also pack one of those just robust, good-to-go overnight bags. Because I can tell you that those first couple of days spent in hospital with mom and baby are some of the most precious days that you will never, ever get back.
But there will be some photos, so just bear that in mind.
Yeah. So
it will happen. And a playlist. That, Lindsay, obviously being...
A playlist?
Kind of, like, we had 10 hours of music mapped out, and I swear that was a lifesaver. So just think about the fact that you're going to be waiting as well. So kind of work around that.
So let's talk about the signs and symptoms. That you've got the bag packed and you're ready. It's in the, you know, it's on standby at the door.
On your marks.
The signs and symptoms to go.
Get set.
We need to go to the hospital right now.
So first of all, you're going to have a lot of what's called Braxton Hicks in the weeks leading up to the birth. So that's when your tummy tightens. And sometimes those Braxton Hicks can be quite sore and actually almost feel like a labour pain. But they're fairly irregular. They might get regular for a few hours and then they disappear again. And my word of caution to mums is don't rush to hospital at that point. And I certainly did that with my firstborn. I rushed to hospital. I thought, oh, he must be coming. But actually you're looking for really, really regular contractions and quite close. When they get to 5 minutes apart and you can't just kind of speak your way through them, you kind of have to pause and maybe breathe, then you know that you're getting to a point that's close. If your waters break, or if you have a show, which is where the mucus plug, which is at the end of your cervix, as you're getting ready for birth, your cervix, which is positioned like this, starts to go like this. And as that happens, that kind of mucus plug, which was protecting the baby from germs, comes out.
Yeah.
So when those sort of things start to happen and you're getting these very regular contractions, you can start to think about going. But my advice would be not to rush it. You can really do the first stage of labour at home quite happily without having to rush to hospital, because the one thing we know about hospital is it can actually slow labour down because you get anxious.
Yeah, it gets all
Relaxation,
hectic and
relaxation.
intense, and it's. I think from our side, I think I was just amazed that through every step of the process, and you can probably remember this, just the calm that came over Lindsay was just amazing. Where you just, I'm like, and she's just goes through it. So just take a breath. Yeah. And I'm speaking to the guys. Just take it step by step
Hold hands
and
and
think
breathe.
before you open your big fat mouth. No, it's just such a magical thing. So, and the nerves almost build and feed that incredible energy.
Yeah. We got a comment here from Nobelungu Ngobese, who says, preparing for birth is really daunting. It's as if you guys knew I'm due beginning September. And just this morning, I took the hospital bag out so I can begin packing it. And I hadn't even unwrapped the baby shower gifts. I've been so nervous. Second time mom and aiming for a VBAC. What would you say to
Oh
to
my
Nobelungu
gosh,
this
I've got
morning?
goosebumps. And I just, she knows, because this is her second baba. So she knows what she's coming up for. It's amazing that she is going for a VBAC. So a VBAC is a vaginal birth after cesarean section. Not a lot of gynaes will do it, and you do need to be in hospital for it because things won't always go according to plan, but it certainly is possible. And the fact that she's preparing her mind for it means that she's probably got a good chance of doing it. If her gynae's bought in, and there it is, just listening to your body. Really, you know, when your body says it's ready to go into labour. And you know, when I spoke just now about waiting to get into hospital, with a VBAC you wouldn't wait to get into hospital. So she would, as soon as she's getting early signs of this could be labour, she's going to go in and they're going to make sure that this labour can go, you know, kind of according to plan.
Is there a time frame that needs to be? Do you need to wait a certain amount of time before you can go for a VBAC?
About
after a
2
C-section?
years, because you've got that scar line on your uterus, and they don't want to stress that. So some women go for as low as maybe 18 months, but ideally you want 2 years between those babies so that your uterus can be properly kind of sealed and nicely knit, and then you can go ahead for a VBAC. Nothing wrong with that.
Oh, good luck, Nobelungu.
Yeah, great.
Awesome.
Meg, thank you so much for always just being a shining light of knowledge and wisdom when it comes to these very, I think, difficult but so just joyful topics, and talking about babies and raising them and being prepared as partners in this life journey.
Yeah, very, very exciting.
All right, guys, you got this. You got this.
got this.
Megfora.sense is where you can find her on the socials. We love